we're coming into the fourth quarter. So sometimes I think this is the most important quarter of next year. And that's the way you need to be looking at this. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But we also have some things to celebrate. Is the market, in your opinion, would you say if someone casually asked you, is the market up in terms of unit, sales, volume? Is it up or down? It's down, right? It's down. Well, not at Devonshire. And that's what I wanted to share with you. So at the end of August, our open units compared year over year up 19.4%. And for the year, that took us over for the year to 1.7%. So what that says is people that were adding to the office are beginning to start adding deals. That's the point of growth. The point of growth is when the market's down, if you're growing, you can beat the market. And we're doing that in a variety of markets. It also shows in open volume where we're up 23% and in closed gross profit. Not that that's important, but let me tell you, my bosses look at that, and that is up 17.5%. So congratulations to you all, and enjoy your mimosas. Some of you also know I just came back from a high school reunion in Peoria, Illinois. I kept telling people it was a reunion. I didn't really want to tell them the number, but I'll let you know the number was 50, because now that I think about it, I'm actually pretty proud of it, because there was a group of people that really weren't there for a lot of reasons, and we know the main reason. And so it's sad. And so that's why I wanted to get back there and at least say hi to some of these people. But as I was there, it took me back in time, as it always does, and it reminds you of certain things that maybe you did in your journey in life. And you start patching things together. Like some people see you the way you still were, et cetera, but just different conversations bring up different things. I remember as a young child saying that, I couldn't memorize anything because it was too hard. But then I remembered that, oh no, wait a minute. You were able to memorize the entire Mass in Latin when you were an older boy. I also remembered in 7th grade that I memorized all of the prepositions. All this comes out of the reunion, see, because these are all people that did this. That I memorized all the prepositions in alphabetical order. And we used to have a contest in 7th grade. And the cool thing was I won the contest again with my 4 mates from my elementary school as we did it on the spot. I couldn't believe it was still in there. What was that, Gail? Okay. About, above, across, after, against, among, around, at, down, during, except for, from, in, into, near, of, off, on, over, pass, through, throughout, to, toward, under, until, up, and with. If you'd like to know them in Latin, they happen to be ab cum coram Dei, pre pro sine, ex in obsque. Now, I'm glad you guys appreciate it. They didn't really appreciate it that much. So, and then it took me back to my first job at Travelers Insurance Company in Peoria, Illinois, where I learned a 45-minute presentation that saved my life. And some of you have heard the story about my first general agent told me if anybody ever says their insurance poor, say, I'm so hard to hear you have a poor insurance program. Did I share that with this group before? And what was really great about that is I thought at the time, that's hardcore. I'll never use that. That's hardcore language. That's not for me. I'm not going to do that. But I actually did use it. When I went on an appointment, it was in a rural area of Illinois, and I get there's 40 cars outside. It's clear they're having a party. The guy didn't remember my appointment. I'm 23 years old. He's half drunk, and so is everybody else in the bag when the door opens. And the first thing he says to impress his friends is, well, I'm insurance poor. What do I say? I'm sorry to hear you have a poor insurance program. That's what I'm here to talk to you about. To a rousing applause. My only point is I get back out to the car, and I'm thinking to myself, thank you, General Agent, for giving me some language that I thought I'd never use, but I'm going to use it, okay? And then one more story, and the reason I'm talking about this is very important because our panel today is going to be talking about a lot of different things. And you may listen to one or the other and say, that's not for me, but I want you to look for what is for you. Don't look about what's not for me. See if you can find a little gem our little jewel that you can use. So last story on conversation, Andreessen Morton. Anybody heard of Andreessen Morton clothing store? Early in my career at Moore & Company, I was at Dave Morton's house, the owner of Andreessen Morton, and I listed his house in Homestead. It was part of my geographic farm. And then 2 days later, I left my company and went to another company. When I went to the other company, I didn't have Dave signed yet, but I knew he was coming because he was referred by his sister in Fort Collins. So unbeknownst to me, my broker goes over and tells him, you need to stay with us. If you want your sister to get a referral fee, you need to stay with us. And I would have known nothing about this had a friend of mine not tipped me off and told me exactly what happened. So on a Saturday morning, I got up and I knocked on his door without an appointment at 8 o'clock in the morning. And he answered the door and he invited me in for breakfast. And I told him, I said, hey, I understand this is the conversation that you're having, and I want you to know, yes, I'm at a different company, but I'm going to pay your sister exactly what I was going to pay her before. And we had a great conversation. We had a great cup of coffee. And Dave looks at me in the eye and he goes, you know what, Kevin? One of the things I'm always looking for in my store is great people that have great guts, that are good salespeople. I'm giving you the deal. I'm signing right now. Good for you. And I left there thinking, good, Kevin. This is good. You acted. You made a move. You made a statement. And this is where I'm going with this, right? The fourth quarter is here. It's time for you to act. It's time for you to speak. It's time for you to listen, right? So all of our agent panels up here are going to make comments that I think are going to impact all of you. Dan DeBacco is probably our newest, our most recent with, is this your fifth year in the business?
I'm in my fourth.
You're in your fourth year. But all of them are going to comment about being new. All of them are going to comment about different marketing strategies that they use, but I want you to really listen to Mark and Faith and Kimberly and, of course, what they're doing, because it's very, very unique. When it comes to client conversation as a topic, Mark in particular, I want him to talk about double-ended deals and how all of that works. So Christmas is around the corner. Some of you heard me say Christmas time is here, because if you're going to get presents, now's the time to do it. So take the step, do an open house, get your contacts in order, make calls, practice your dialogues, and actually deliver the dialogues. That's the most important thing. As you say to yourself sometimes, I've heard you say this, I can't say that. Yes, you can. Just say it. There's a lot of guys here in this room that if they hadn't asked her to dance, right, or asked him to dance, if they hadn't done that first move, they wouldn't be together, and they churned in their stomach because their buddies watched them from behind, laughing and waiting for them to fail. So I want to go 2 hours max. We're going to take a break in the middle because we're having mimosas. I want the panel to feel comfortable to be able to take a break if they need to. And we'll probably do question and answers after the second break. So let's go back to the panel. Kimberly Austin, we all know, in our office, number one in the company. Let's give her a big round of applause. Dan DeBacco got his start here in the office, was Rookie of the Year when he was in this office, now working out of Denver Central. I always want to go Faith Hill. When I hear Faith, I want to go Faith Hill.
Everyone remembers me.
It's Faith Young. She has a little moniker online that she does in marketing called What Would Faith Do? We're going to talk about that a little bit because it's very unique, and I think it's something that you would like to all hear. And then Mark, of course, we all know Mark. Number two in the office, but number one downtown, all companies. And believe me, I like to brag about all these people and all these successful people when I am out recruiting. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to do quick questions along kind of rapid fire, and then we'll come into more in-depth conversation. So Kimberly Austin, native of Colorado?
I am a native in Colorado. First of all, I just wanted to say, Kevin, thank you. It's really amazing to have you in our office. Honestly, without you, I don't know that our group would be as strong as it is. So I just wanted to give you some honor. Well, that's the end of the meeting.
Everybody have a good day.
So thanks. But just as importantly, I can't tell you all how amazing it is to be on this panel and to be asked to be sitting next to Dan and Faith and Mark. And there's people out in group here, like Julie Gelfond, I know Janie, and Susie. There's so many of you that have helped me that you don't know what you don't know until somebody helps you know.
That is
So
great
if
to
there's
hear.
anything that I can do to help any of you, just let me know and I'll just
Wonderful.
do my best.
Where'd you go to high school?
I'm a third generation Colorado native. I went to Alameda High School, which people are like, Alameda. But it's a great high school, so that's where I'm from.
How many years in the business?
I'm entering 17, 18 years in the business. I started when my twins were born. I was bored and I was outgrowing my house. So I decided to sell it, and I sold it the first day in 1 hour. So I'm like, I should try that. And so here I am.
What was your most immediate job prior to getting into real estate?
I owned a computer consulting firm. I am a computer programmer. I have a management degree from Metro State College. So I think one of the biggest things that I learned is how to just do what it takes to get things done.
I never knew that about that computer program. Anybody else knew that? I think that's cool. Let's go over to Mark. We're going to switch to Mark. Native?
Moved here in 91.
91.
Yeah, I don't think I need a microphone.
Well, just for the recording.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so 1991, I moved to Colorado, and I made it to Fort Collins, where I was at Colorado State University working there, and started in radio up there. So my whole career up until that point was in radio, and I was doing radio. I started in West Virginia, made my way over towards Columbus and Dayton and Indianapolis and Bloomington. And so I spent 25 years in Fort Collins doing radio, and then I left most recently. I was a senior vice president of programming for iHeartMedia. So it was fun. It was going down a bad path. They had $21 billion in debt, so I knew that they were not going anywhere well. And they filed bankruptcy shortly after I got out of it and got back into real estate 6 years ago.
Awesome. So you went to high school where? Out of state?
In West Virginia.
In
yeah.
West Virginia. Okay. And so how many years in the business now?
6 years. I just renewed my license for another 3-year period.
6 years. Wow.
I was debating if I was going to keep doing it because it's getting super stressful now.
Yeah. No, is this a stressful business? Yeah.
No, it's become a lot more stressful. I mean,
I agree.
And I think other agents, I can get in and talk all day long. They lack professionalism.
Yes.
They get rude, and it's not like we're working the same, goals to get a deal
Yeah.
done.
Would you mind handing that mic to Faith?
I wanted to keep talking a little bit.
See, this is why we're allowing for 2 hours. See? Yeah. So, Faith, native?
Yes, I am a native. Actually, I'm a centennial baby.
Centennial baby?
Yeah, so I was born in the month and the year of Colorado's centennial and America's bicentennial. So on my 100th birthday, it will be Colorado's 200th and America's 300th.
I love it. Where'd you go to high school?
Ponderosa.
Ponderosa.
Yeah.
So Parker, Douglas County,
Yeah,
right?
Douglas County.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. How many years in the business?
13.
13.
Yeah, lucky 13.
It went fast. And what did you do prior to getting in the business? What the most recent job?
So prior to that, I worked retail. And I have my degree in advertising and graphic design. I graduated from art college. So it comes in very handy in this business.
I love it. I love it. Really, really cool. Let's change it over here to Dan. Now, we know you're not a native, so where were you born?
Well, I have to begin first, Kevin. So Kevin was one of the first people I met when I came from California. I'm originally from Ohio, but moved out to Colorado here as my wife, Katrina, got a job with Caldwell Banker Corporate. You may have met her, Katrina DeBacco. She's the broker concierge. But Kevin, thank you for your insight when I first got started. I have to thank Mark Callahan because he was my first deal. I did an open house for him, so I'll talk about open houses and really how it really boosted my business for sure. And I also wanted to thank Julie over there. She said something to me, or really to the group, that really stuck with me, and that is, there is plenty of business for everybody.
I love that.
And I swear, Julie, I tell myself that every day when I think I'm getting down and out and, like I'm not going to get my next deal. I know I'm going to get my next deal, because of that advice. And it's truly an honor to be in this room because I've pretty much talked to each and every one of you, at least some of the veterans. There's a lot of new faces here, so I'll get to know you eventually. But thank you guys. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's all right.
So you moved here officially what year?
So we moved here October of 2015.
October of 2015. You went straight into real estate.
Yep.
So tell us about your high school.
Sure. So I attended the Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, which is in Northeast Ohio.
Uh-huh.
So I am one of the many Browns fans that are starting to come out of the woodwork. We'll see how we do this year. And then I graduated from the University of Dayton, which is just north of Cincinnati in Ohio, and things were still kind of crummy there, so I went to vacation in California and never came back. And where my primary background was in retail management. So I was managing Pete's Coffee and Teas and Starbucks and did a little sales in between, and also got my master's degree out there in change management. So
How many years in the business now?
I'm in my 4th year.
In your 4th year. Okay, so we see a little bit of variety. That's what I want you to notice, is that we've got people in different stages in their career. I don't know about you guys, but when I read a book, sometimes I actually go to the end of the book. You ever do that? Like just cheat. You ever do that? Anybody else? So you go to the end of the book, and you find out what happened at the end of the book, and then you start. So I'm going to, because of the way we build this with the special topics, I'm going to go right to the topics now is what I'm getting at, okay? So I'm going to go first here to Mark Callahan. And there's so many things we want to cover, but specifically, one of the things that I want to have Mark talk about is his propensity for double-ending transactions. Now, maybe some of it is the market that he works that makes that more common for the opportunity, but opportunity or not, you need a special conversation to make this done, to get this done, right? So in any given year, I don't know if you know the number, but what percentage would you say of transactions that you are able to double in?
I would say last year I probably did 20%. A lot of that is in the Spire building downtown because I get lots of calls from people that want to be in the building, but they want a different floor plan, looking a different direction. So I've got a spreadsheet of all the people that I talk to, and as soon as I have a listing opportunity, I have that in my head. Of course, I don't tell people because I don't want them posting on the Spire website and maybe capturing people and me losing the opportunity. So when I go in on the listing appointment, I always, go through everything like we do, the definition of working relationships, and I make sure that they spend a lot of time with that. And I explain to them because I'm going in as their agent, but if this situation comes up where I've got an opportunity to bring the buyer, then I talk about what I do. And I also put it in section 29 of the listing agreement, and I put language in there to the effect of, if I bring the buyer, that I will bring my commission down to, if they agree to do a status change the status to transaction broker, then I will lower my commission to 5% or 5.5 or 5.25, depending on how much I like them and how much business they've done with me in the past. But I mean, if they've been a really good customer, I'll do 5. And and sometimes it depends on my mood. I'll put 5.5 in as a starting point, and it'll be in there. And I always send them the documents so they can review them prior to us meeting, after I know that they're going to hire me. And then if they say, 5.5, that's not a big deal, then I'll say, okay, I'll do 5.25. And then I jump right back on all the different things that I do with staging and photography and marketing. I mean, I've got Facebook marketing going right now on my brand new listing in Stapleton, and it's targeted. I targeted Lowry, Stapleton, also some areas that might be moving in. And, my seller was late getting out, so we missed the school season start. But this product that I've got on the market, it's not all about a lot of kids in it. It's a paired home out there. So when I get someone, can I keep going, or do we have a clock?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
So open houses, I've done a lot from open houses. I remember one open house I did at the Spire. I had these people come in. It was a listing that I had just had. I pitched this seller forever to get him to sign a listing agreement with me. He said, I can go somewhere else and get it cheaper, and that whole bunch of crap. And I just said, here's what I can do. I've got an open house tomorrow, and we're doing 4 condos. I can make it 5 and try to get yours sold. He said, well, what about the pictures? I said, I'll get the pictures next week, but we'll present it to everyone that comes in. So I had this Chinese couple come in, and a lot of times when people come to open houses at the Spire, it can suck up a lot of time because we've got 42 stories, 496 condos, and if you start on a tour of the amenities, that can really take you out of the mix for like 45 minutes. So I've got that down now. So I only take people to the condo and see if they like the condo. And if they like the condo, then I set an appointment to bring them back to see the amenities and hopefully get them really interested and fired up and make an offer. So this Chinese couple, they looked at it and they gave me their number and they didn't talk a whole lot and they spent 20 or 30 minutes in the condo, and I thought, well, that was another waste of time. So then I saw them in the bar of the Spire the next day, and I said, hey, so what'd you think of that condo? He said, we love it. We want to make a full price offer. And I thought, where'd this come from? We went a day and nothing. But anyway, so I called the seller and I said, okay, I've got someone that wants to make an offer here. And I explained to them that I was the agent at that point for the seller. And in order for me to facilitate it, well, I asked them if they had an agent, and they said no. And he said, well, we can negotiate the commission. The buyer did. I said, well, the seller pays the commission, so that you got to take that out of the equation. He said, well, I can make a lower offer because he will probably pay less commission. And I just explained the seller pays the commission. I just went back to that. I wasn't going to get into it because it can get it all confused.
You didn't have a number conversation with them.
Exactly, right. So then I called the seller and I said, I think I have a buyer. He said, you're shitting me. And so I said, well, if you're going to let me work with him, we need to change status right now to transaction broker. And I just reminded him again what that means. So I can provide all the facts in the world for him. So all the comps, everything, thank you, everything that's going on in the building. I can tell him everything. I can tell both sides all of that. I can give him all comps of downtown, similar buildings, everything like that. And so they all understand it. And then he signs the change of status. I don't even start working on the contract until I have the change of status. Just, it's got to be done and signed by both parties. And, you know, occasionally some sellers think that they're going to end up getting screwed on it. But the truth of it is the sellers mostly know in their head what they're willing to sell it for. And besides my listing appointment with them and pricing it, they know what they're really going to take. And a lot of my clients, you know, will agree on a list price, but they still won't tell me what their bottom line is, which is fine with me because it makes me work even harder.
Right.
On the buy side, I've had some people say, you know, you can't advise me. Maybe I should just hire my own realtor. And I said, you know, I can give you all the facts. There's nobody that knows this building better and the price per square foot and what view does what to it. So, I mean, I'll go over all this. And if you're not comfortable working with me, I said, I think you will be. And I'll show them my stats on the building and what I've done with people and how many that are double-ended from the prior year. And I even give examples. If they keep pushing, I'll give examples of where I've double-ended 3 condos back to back and brought all these people together and introduced them at our summer party, and they all talked about what a great experience they had with me.
Do you ever use the approach, Mark, that you're the director, you're the orchestrator, and it's really a lot easier actually to have one person instead of worrying about the agency and representation, about getting the job done, all going through one person? Is that something that you use?
Absolutely. And I take the inspectors through the building, and when I take them to the condo, I talk to them. And usually they're with the buyers. And then once they get in the condo, I let them go in there and spend time, because I don't want them to think for a second that I'm working with one particular inspector, which I don't. Right. It's a particular company I use just because I like the way they do reports and stuff. But, I mean, so far I haven't had anyone go sideways with it. Occasionally the seller says, you know, you're going to 5.5% or 5.2% or whatever percent. You know, you should be doing it for a lot less. And I said, it's actually double the work. I'm doing every single thing that I'm doing for you for them. And I'm trying to do it in a way that I stay out of trouble and stay neutral, but I still want you to feel like you're getting great representation.
Yeah. Awesome.
But one other thing that came up this weekend, I was back east meeting with, I was visiting my family, and I got a call, and I always answer my phone when it shows up with no number on it or whatever, thinking it's going to be a client. Well, it was. So it was this guy that was in the Spire, and this is kind of off track, but it's going to turn into a double end tonight, I think. So he calls me, and he says, hey, I saw this listing come up in the Spire on the 42nd floor, and it's on Zillow, and it says to call this Rex something. So they dialed that Rex Real Estate, And this guy must have been 75 years old, and he said that he called and he got some girl and he could barely understand her, and he said he really wanted to look at that condo and 42nd floor, top floor, 1 bedroom, and she said, we are making appointments and we can show it to you in 3 to 4 days. We can have someone call you back. And so he got frustrated with it, and he called me, and he said, what do you know about this Rex? And I told him, only what I've read about it. And he said, can you get us in to see it? So I called them yesterday, and I was nice. I said, hey, I'm with Coldwell Banker Devonshire in Denver, and I said I'd like to schedule a showing. She said, okay. And then there was dead silence. I said, so what do we need to do that? And she said, well, I can put that request in, but we just want to let you know up front, we do not pay any realtors that work a deal with us.
Right.
She said, so you'll need to charge your buyer that. I said, okay. I said, so for sure? She said, we're not your traditional real estate company. She said, we're new and people will be moving to our business model. I said, oh, okay. And she said, and if you decide that you want to make an offer on it, there's a form on our website where you can complete an interest form. And I said, well, I actually see where an agent from your company is in CTM, and I can integrate and submit the contract like I would any other way. She said, we don't follow Colorado rules. I said, so what do you mean? She said, no, we're a whole different kind of real estate company. But anyway, so I called the buyer back last night, and I told him what happened. He said, let's not even worry about them. Don't you have one coming up on the 41st floor looking at the mountains? I said, yes, we're doing the photos on it tomorrow night. He said, I want to see it. I'll bring my wife and probably buy it. So that's good.
And you know what's unbelievable? Weren't you supposed to get that listing?
Yes.
And that seller decided to choose Rex.
Yes.
Listen to how this thing happened. They think they're saving money, and the buyer was so put off they're buying another unit. What a great story in the future for somebody.
Right,
Rex.
it's Rex. And
Yeah.
so I did meet with the seller of that condo, and he started just randomly texting me at night saying, hey, would you be interested in listing 4207? I said, absolutely. And I've sold 5 on that floor, so I now know how to premium price it. And so we went through the whole thing. I went in the condo with him, looked at it. It's tenant occupied right now. And I said, here's the number I think I can get out of it. I said, we're going to have to market the heck out of it, and it's going to have to be penthouse, 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 downtown Denver. We went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And so I just texted him like 3 days later because he's always been really a jerk. I mean, I really didn't want to deal with him. Hang on, where is it? Here it is. So then I sent him a text. I said, good morning, Blair. Following up on your Spire condo. He said, hey, Mark, thanks for checking in. We're listing our condo with a new firm in the industry due to the difference in commissions paid at closing. I said, awesome. I hope I'll be able to bring a buyer. Good luck to both of you. I will be here down the road if you need me. He said, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. So then I sent him a link to Rex because I could tell in CTM when I did a property search, like I was pretending that I was going to integrate with it, that he had hired this company. And I said, I read up on him. Interesting. He said, yeah, very interesting. Disruptor in the space. Great value proposition. Whether or not they're able to execute is another question. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
So.
And now you have the actual story, because you can't even tell them now.
Right.
But I'm going to bet right now today that they end up calling you, and then you'll finally be able to say to them, just like I said, I had a buyer, and it was so complicated and so weird that I ended up selling them something else because you chose that
And
company.
the commission went up to 7% during that period that you were with Rex.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. And thank you. That's a natural pass there. Wonderful. And we're going to come back. We're going to hear more from all of these people. So, all right. So going to the end of the book, going to the billing here, one thing I didn't put in our little intro when I talked about the panel is this marketing program that Faith uses called What Would Faith Do? And I think you've broken it down into initials. I think you have Facebook postings. You have cards. I don't know. Tell us. So let's start right there. So What Would Faith Do encompasses what? Where did it come from? And how's that working for you?
Yeah, so my title in my book is What Would Faith Do? So the coolest thing about writing a book is you instantly become an expert. So people see you in a different value when you write a book. So the title of my book is What Would Faith Do? So where did that branding come from? Is when I went to write my book, I had wrote the book and I hadn't had the title of the book yet. And I was talking to my yoga instructor and I said, yeah, I'm writing this book. And one of the stories that's in this book is a friend of mine who found herself in jail, out of all places, because she didn't pay a speeding ticket. That's what happens if you don't pay a speeding ticket. And so she's in there and she goes, oh my gosh, what would Faith do? She goes, Faith would write 100 things she's grateful for. So she had a remission slip and a piece of paper and she started writing 100 things she was grateful for. And then she was able to go in front of the judge and get released at least, and pay her fine. And I was the first person she called when she got out saying, hey, you were there for me when I needed it the most. And so that's where the title of my book came from, What Would Faith Do? So it's all about branding, like Kevin is saying, and like the colors and everything, red, black, and white, everything is red, black, and white. My cards are red, black, and white. Like, it just is a way for people to remember who you are. And I play off my name a lot. Like on my business card, my tagline says, in this business, all you need is faith.
Cute.
Yeah. And so it's important that people remember you, right?
It is.
So, and you're your own brand, right? Sure, we hold our license under Coldwell Banker, but you want people to remember who you are, right? Because people will be like, oh my gosh, you're going to sell your house? You have to call my friend Faith. And they're like, oh, what company is she with? And they're like, I don't know, but let's call her right now, right? That's what you want, is them to remember who you are.
Who you are and what you do, and they don't even know the company, which is even more impressive. So that's what everybody should be looking for.
Right.
So the Rockies. So we've
Rockies.
done this Rockies promotion, I don't know,
10
Tammy,
years.
what do you think?
10 years.
10 years.
Yes, I know the number.
The first year,
Yes.
how many people did you bring?
I brought 100 people my first year.
On the first year?
First year.
Okay. How many people did you bring this year?
550.
550. So, if you're buying 550 tickets, of which 10 are free, so you're buying 540 tickets, we all know the numbers, that we're looking at a $5,000, maybe $6,000 investment. You do a pregame party?
Yes.
How many people come to the pregame party?
About 175 people come to the happy hour.
Do they bring people that you don't know?
Absolutely. Every time.
Amazing. And are they walking around every day saying, I want to introduce you to my realtor?
Yes.
So when you do the math, I just asked you before we sat down,
Right.
how many deals would you say that particular investment generates for you, buy side, list side?
So typically every year between 7 and 14 transactions come out of the Rockies game.
Just that.
Just that game.
Just those conversations.
Yes.
Average sale price for you, 500,000,
Yes.
right? So we're looking 15,000 in commission times 7 to 14. Pretty good investment.
It's a good day.
So any highlight stories? You told me one before. I'd like
Yeah.
you to share that one. So what year it was and kind of what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking. So one thing that I do is leverage everything that Coldwell Banker does for us. So our Clients for Life program, they set us up for success. Right? Like literally, all we have to do is send it out and invite people. How cool is that? So thank you for all you guys do. So for the Rockies game, 3 years ago, one of my friends came up to me and said, hey, Faith, I have a friend who is a builder. They're looking to hire an exclusive listing agent. Is that a good contact for you? Yes, yes, and yes. And so the coolest thing was the Rockies game was coming up. So who was the first person I called to give tickets to, right?
Right.
Was my friend.
Right.
And she brought the builder to my happy hour, to the Rockies game 3 years ago, 2016. And the first time I met this builder was when she came to my Rockies game and to the happy hour. And she's like, and there's about 150, 175 people there. She's like, these are all your people? And I'm like, actually, that's about 1/3. The other 400 are going to be at the game. And she was so impressed that I knew 500 people. And I always tell all the agents, because I get this question all the time, like, how do you know 500 people? I actually have 5,500 people in my iPhone, so 550 is only 10%. So I know a lot of people. And so that was the first time I met her. Long story short, I went to tour her development that she asked me to come tour, and it turned into one person who I met in my game at the Rockies game 3 years ago turned into $8 million in sales.
$8 million. And that was a 3-year deal. That's sometimes we forget that, you know. Sometimes it's so hard. You get that referral and you go, oh, wait, but I need something this weekend. No, you're going to need it when you need it. So work it as you get it and stay with it. Good for you. Congratulations. Okay, let's keep it in the same order here. We're moving our way. So Dan DeBacco, as you learned in the introduction, from Ohio, then to Northern California, where you met Katrina, got married. That was a good choice, by the way. You married up. Would everybody agree that Dan married up with Katrina? Yeah. And so then, you know, you and I talked briefly. You're going to join her here, and you're going to go cold turkey into the real estate business, into a market in a city where you know absolutely no one other than your wife and other realtors. And those other realtors aren't going to help you. So what were your first steps? So you've got your license, you're ready to roll, you're in this office actually at the time. What things did you do right out of the bat?
I mean, it really just starts with, who do I know?
Yeah.
You know, you really don't know who you know until you start actually peeling back, right? So started looking at Facebook, started looking at LinkedIn, started looking at maybe spheres of influence such as networking groups and organizations that, you know, are out there that I might be interested in being involved in. And you'd be surprised on how many people you actually do know, whether it's a branch, meaning somebody, a friend of a friend, or, you know, you met them way back in the day and lost touch, and, you know, kind of whatever the case may be. And so as I was building my database, you know, I think I started at really 25 is really where my strength was. And I'd say 15 of those were C's, a couple of B's, and a couple of A's. So really not much to start at. And really my strategy in the beginning was the Buffini model. Newbies, have you guys done Buffini? Some? Okay. I highly recommend it if you haven't done it, as I believe that is how I've been so successful, because it's very much a relationship model. I did cold calling. I did the salesy thing. I don't like to be cold called. I don't like to be sold. So I made the decision that I was not going to be the salesman. I made the commitment that I was going to be somebody that was going to build lasting, long relationships and planting seeds from day one.
Can we stop right there so keep your thought process going?
Sure.
So I'm on your list. Let's say I was on that 25. What's that first conversation like from you to me that's not salesy?
Sure.
Let's do that.
Sure. So, you know, I try to do a little bit of background on them. I figure out, you know, what line of work they're in, or, you know, what they've been up to, trying to see what their family's going on. And it's just a quick phone call, you know, and I was very transparent. I said, hey, I'm new to the area. I'm just starting my own business. But you know what? I just want to meet folks and, you know, get to know the area and what you've experienced here in Denver. Can I sit down and buy a cup of coffee and learn about the business you started, or the company you work for, or, you know, how was your trip to Europe, or whatever the case may be, and really getting them and, you know, bought into, wow, this guy wants to learn about me, and not me go out to him and say, hey, buy a house for me. You know, I'm that guy.
Well, it's a really interesting concept, because you're not even mentioning real estate in the conversation. Who doesn't want to talk about their favorite person, which is themselves?
Correct.
And why wouldn't you, if you moved someplace new, why wouldn't you want to learn about, you know, where you live and this kind of thing? And this is a great lesson, because there's a lot of us that maybe have a lot more, but you could still take the same approach, right?
And really, when you get that meeting, right, you get that coffee or that happy hour or whatnot, you should be really only talking for 5 minutes, and you're more doing the questioning. And so the Ford model, family, occupation, recreation, dream, is a tried and true way to guide a conversation.
Everybody get that? You ever heard that before? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
And before you know it, you're really at just past occupation, and you've already gone 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you have an opportunity to say, hey, you know, I got to run. I know you got, you know, another appointment. Let's get together again. I want to continue to learn, you know, about what you've been up to.
Followed with a thank you note, email, whatever.
I've gotten more compliments on handwritten notes than I ever thought possible.
Thank you for sharing that. We've had some conversations in here about that very, very, very topic. Okay, really interesting. Okay, let's keep it moving this way. Kimberly Austin. So what did you tell me, 17 years?
17 years.
17 years in the business. You do a lot of things, and you do a lot of things great.
Thank you.
And we're hopefully going to touch on as many of them as we can.
Fantastic.
One thing I want to start off with is the 4th of July
Okay.
in Stapleton, where you passed out this year, was it 5,000 or 6,000 flags?
6,000.
5,000 flags in one day. In one day.
Yeah.
Planting them in the ground. So when you're doing 5,000 flags in one day, which is an unbelievable amount of people. So are your kids involved?
I have my kids involved.
Your husband?
My husband,
Any
my
other-
lenders.
Your lender.
My lender and his team came out to help put 5,000 flags in. And I actually had somebody say, Kimberly, my daughter thought there was a flag ferry. She was driving her bike around Stapleton, went to bed, woke up, and there were flags everywhere in Stapleton.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so now let's go back. So 17 years, the first year wasn't in Colorado.
So the very first year was in Colorado. Just so everybody knows, I have 37 first cousins. I was born and raised here, so I went to elementary, middle school, high school, and college here. So I know people here. It was easy to be a realtor. My very first year, I sold 9 houses. And then my husband got us relocated to Southern California, where I knew absolutely nobody. And at the time, I was with Prudential here in Colorado, so I thought I would just go to California and be a realtor there. So I signed up to be a realtor. I did really well here. They took my numbers. They took me in, and I was very thankful. And the very first year that I was there, I started saying, okay, I'm ready to be a real estate agent. I got my license. It wasn't in a state of reciprocity, so I actually had to take the test again and become a realtor there. And so I was very excited. My kids were 2, and I went into the office every day, and I waited for my phone to ring, but it didn't. And so then I went home discouraged. Then I went in the next day, and I waited for my phone to ring, and it still didn't. And so I went to the managing broker, and I said, you know, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There's something wrong. He's like, well, what are you doing, Kimberly? I said, well, I'm being a realtor, but I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong because nobody's calling me. He's like, wait a minute. So how many open houses have you held? And I started laughing. I'm like, are you kidding me? We all know that when we hold an open house, it is for me to get buyers. It's really not to sell the house. And I just think it's unethical to do that to a seller. And he laughed at me, and he said, are you kidding me? You need to do an open house. Are you telling me you've never done an open house? I said, not ever. And he said, how long have you been in the business? I don't know, 5, 7, 6 years. He said, Kimberly, you need to do an open house. I said, all right, whatever, I'll try an open house. I don't know how. And he said, okay, so how many doors have you knocked? I started laughing. I'm like, you want me to knock on somebody's door and sell their house? He's like, not exactly, but yeah, I do. I'm like, never done that either. Kimberly, how many phone calls have you made? I'm like, to who? I just moved here. Do you want me to call you? He's like, I would never let you sell me a house. So I said, okay. Yeah, I've never done that, not ever. I don't even know who I'd call. He's like, what did you do to be a realtor in Denver? I was like, gosh, I don't know. I just was successful. I knew people. And he's like, how many people do you know here? I'm like, you. And so, yeah, that's it. He's like, I want you to go to door knocking classes. And I've conducted that for us here. And I also want you to, try door knocking. I was like, huh, what does that look like? So I want you to go to the door knocking classes. I'm like, do they really have door knocking classes? And he's like, yes, I want you to go. So I said, okay, and it's kind of like what Dan said. The whole purpose of door knocking is not to sell their home or to be a salesperson. It's to build rapport. And so that is what I did to start building my farm. And today I am one of the biggest farmers you ever met, and it's kind of ironic because my husband was born and raised in a farm town. So anyway, so I went door knocking. And it was about this time, so it was around Halloween time, and I went and I bought a pumpkin. It was about this big, and I was pretty darn proud of it. And I pulled up all the expired listings in my neighborhood, and I thought, aha, I'm going to go door knock on that door because I know that lady wanted to sell her house, and it didn't sell. So I bought this big pumpkin, and in Southern California, I lived in Pasadena, and she had a very big driveway, and she was on, I don't know, probably an acre maybe of this house. It was just huge. So I get out of my car, I have this little pumpkin on it with my business card, and I go walking all the way up this driveway with this big pumpkin, and I'm like walking up, and I ring the doorbell, and I'm excited to meet this person who's going to open the door, and it says, "No soliciting." And I felt like the Desperate Housewives, where they do something they're not supposed to. I felt like jumping in the bushes. And so she didn't answer the door. I'm like thinking, oh, thank God. So I grabbed the pumpkin. I walk all the way back down this large driveway. And I got a little hot and sweaty carrying this darn thing. And I come back to the office and I set the pumpkin on my managing broker's desk. And I said, "That pumpkin's for you." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I tried door knocking. I took that damn thing all the way up to the house, and it was a large driveway." And he had a big smile. He felt very proud of me. And I said, "And I rang the doorbell. I heard it go ring, ring." And I thought for sure she's going to answer the door. He was going to answer the door. And it says "no soliciting." And it was already too late. I rang the doorbell. I felt discouraged. And I said, I'm just not going to do the door knocking thing. It's not for me. He said, "Aha. You're going to go back. You're going to take this pumpkin back, and you are going to ring that doorbell, and you're not going to solicit." I said, "Well, isn't that the point?" And he's like, "No, the point is to be nice." I was like, huh? That's a concept. I said, "All right, I'll try it one more time, and if she takes the pumpkin, you don't get to keep it, and if she doesn't answer, I'm not door knocking anymore." So I took the pumpkin, and I'm not kidding, it was heavy. So I ring the doorbell, and I'm standing there. I took my business card off. And it was this little old lady. She had to have been 85, maybe close to 90. And I was surprised. I said, "Hi." She's like, "Well, hello." And I'm standing there with this pumpkin. I'm like, "I'm new to the neighborhood. I don't have any friends, so I thought I'd start with you." And I brought you a pumpkin. And she smiled so big and said, "People used to do this in the 1920s. Come in. Would you like to have some tea?" I'm thinking, I would love to have some tea because I have no friends. And she's like, "Perfect, I'll be your first friend." And so we sat at her kitchen table and we talked. And she's like, "People used to knock on doors and be more neighborly." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, only if this lady knew. So I decided to be her friend and not to sell her house. And I decided I wasn't going to talk anything about real estate. And after the course of time, she wanted to learn a little bit about me and where I was from and what I was doing. And she learned over the course of time that I was a real estate agent. And she's like, "I actually tried to sell my house before, and it didn't sell." And I said, "Why not?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know." And so we got to start talking about real estate, and then I ended up listing her house.
I love this story. And there's so much to love in that story because I think everyone in here at one time or another has contemplated door knocking and maybe talked themselves out of it. Or if you were like me, maybe threw up the first time you did it in your car and went back out there. But if the approach is really pure, which is your manager's right on the money. Mm-hmm. When the sign says "no soliciting" and you're knocking on the door, what are you soliciting? You're really not, are you? You're really providing information or obtaining information and trying to be a friendly person and establish a relationship along the way. But now let's fast forward.
So fast forward, that was very successful, and so I started door knocking.
Here?
In Pasadena.
Oh, in Pasadena.
And I ended up listing 6 houses in my own neighborhood over the course of 6 months.
Wow. How many houses would you say so if you listed 6 in 6 months, how many door knocks would you say per listing? So
when I moved back to Colorado, so we got relocated back to Colorado through my husband's company, and so we came back, and it was in 2008, and we all know what 2008 looked like.
Right.
And so my kids needed to get back into school, so I got them into school, and then I was at home by myself doing absolutely nothing, so I thought, I guess I should start this real estate stuff back up. And so I did. I started door knocking on my own street just because I was new to Stapleton. I didn't know anybody, and I needed some more friends. And so sure enough, I started door knocking and started getting listing after listing after listing. And people are like, "Who's this person?" Like I was nowhere, and then all of a sudden I'm everywhere in the community. And Kevin asked me to share with you some of the things that I have. This is Stapleton. All the houses in red are the houses I listed and sold. All the houses in blue are the houses that I brought buyers to. And so when somebody is asking me to come out to list their home, or I'm in a competitive situation against another realtor, I bring this out because, kind of like anyone, don't you want somebody that knows what they're doing, right? So one of the things that I do is I do share this with them, and they want to know value. So this has been very helpful for me.
Okay, so I'm going to grab this real quick and go right over here. On this same topic, in your building, right, along the lines of what she's doing marketing-wise, what do you do to let people know in the Spire your success? And tell me a little bit about that marketing.
Well, I do tons and tons of direct mail. I mean, tons. And you know what? If I send it to 496 owners and 50 of them look at it, or whatever the percentage is, and then once a quarter and annually I do a letter that's hand addressed to each owner. And I've got a company in New York that does that, and they put my return address. And so it shows everything that I sold in the building: list price, days on the market, percentage of list price. So I just keep beating people over with the facts. I also post every listing on the Spire website so people know. So, I mean, after 6 years, people, they call me or they send me messages. Who do you recommend for a plumber? Who do you recommend for an electrician? We've got this noise with our air conditioner, and I'll say, have you changed the filter? And they're like, where is that? And so then I tell them they can get filters down at the desk. So I help them out a lot, and I'm in the elevator all day and evening and everything, and everyone, always someone gets in and they want to talk about real estate. So we've got a hotel that's being built on the Stout Street side of the building, and it's caused some stress on that side of the building because the building is allegedly proposed to be 27 floors. So we're 42 on that side of the building, so probably 62 condos are going to be affected one way or another by it. So I sold the first condo on the 11th floor without a balcony after the hotel was announced. And, you know, people are panicking over there. They're either hopefully letting listings expire instead of fire sale pricing. A few of them, like there was one that was listed on the 37th floor that was not going to be affected by the hotel, and they just went under contract, and I called the agent and I said, what did it go under contract for? And he told me, and I just about had a stroke. Because, you know, I spend my time educating people in the hotel that we're in an urban environment in downtown Denver. I mean, buildings are going up. You know, it said when you originally purchased into the Spire or the Coloradan that things are going to change, things are going to be built. But I just stay in contact with them all the time. I mean, if someone needs to borrow a ladder, I give them a ladder. If someone says they need a parking space overnight, they're willing to Venmo $10, I send them a message and say, take 407, it's free for the night, have a good night. So I just keep doing all those little things. And, you know, 90% of the time they call me, and then if I lose a listing, it's generally over commission. That's what it's about.
What is your percentage of solds? What would you say your market share is in Spire?
Probably 65%.
What's your market share at Stapleton?
I think I am at 15%, which isn't as big.
Yeah.
I sold 68 houses last year. 50 of them were in Stapleton. This year I've sold, listed 22, and I brought 4. And so right now, my biggest thoughts for my farm is just to have people know who I am. So one of the things that I do for Stapleton is I am very active with the Stapleton MCA. And so I sponsor their events. I am the tent every Thursday at Moja Blue, where they have jazz picnics where people come out. I get to bring my own tent and anything that I want to give as swag. So I have frisbees, I have beach balls, I have things that will attract little kids to my tent, because people love their families, they love their kids. And so if I can make a kid happy, a parent is going to be happy. And so it's always about trying to give, because when you give, people like that. And so all of us on this panel are trying to give to you, hoping that you'll get something out of it. And so if there's anything that, if you take away today, give to people. They love it. And so I get to do the events because I'm a sponsored realtor in the community, but I also get to bring Santa. And so every year for the last, I would say 7 years, I've brought Santas. He's the same guy. I bring the
It's the real Santa, right? The real one.
He's really
There's
the
only
real
one.
Santa.
Yeah.
He is really the real Santa.
In case there's any children watching,
No.
this is the real Santa.
He really is. He comes from the North Pole. And it takes a lot of months for me to actually get him on board. And he's got a lot of things going on with all the toys that are working. So we have Rick taking photos. We set up the tent through the MCA, the Stapleton MCA, and we tell the entire community that we are going to sponsor Santa and get him to come down. We take the pictures and I hand deliver them to everyone. Last year I had to deliver over 200 photos to the people when I go to their houses. So that means I get their name, their address, their phone number, and their kids' names. And so when I'm getting those things, I'll ring the doorbell after I get the photos from Rick and knock on the door. Hi, I've got the best thing in my hand that you would ever want. And people don't even know who I am.
I love it.
They're like, who are you? I'm like, do you have a little boy named Andrew and a little girl named Joanna? Yeah, so do I. And people love it. They're like, oh my gosh, Kimberly, thank you. That is so awesome. And any time somebody gives me a thank you, I always say, thank you so much also. And if there's ever a chance that I can help you, please let me know.
Thank you very much. So we doing okay? We're past the break. I'm still maybe 5 or 10 minutes in. If anybody want a break, we're doing okay. So let's take the topic of giving. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to go right over here to Dan. And let's borrow this. Here we go. So, Dan, did you start your own charity here in Colorado? What is the name of that charity?
Flyers for Kids.
Where did that idea come from, and what does that charity do?
Sure. So, attended the University of Dayton, and at UD we had what was called Christmas on Campus, and we brought inner city kids to our campus, and students would volunteer to adopt a child for an evening. We'd decorate the entire campus. It would look like the North Pole. We called Kimberly Austin to see if we can get Santa to come over too, and she was gracious enough to allow that. And
Because there is only one Santa.
exactly, right. And so, so what we wanted to do, and really where this came from, is I wanted to be more involved in my alumni association. You'd be surprised, whether you're big or small, how many alumni you actually have where you live.
And what is that university again?
University of Dayton.
Okay.
And we have over 1,500 alumni in the Denver metro area, and over 2,000 in Colorado. So that's where I really started to find my niche. So I wanted to get more involved and plan something. You know, I'm very much, I feel like if I wasn't in real estate, I'd be a party planner, for sure. I love to plan events. And so I got this idea, why can't we replicate Christmas on campus at Dayton and bring that here to Denver and get my alumni involved, because they, of course, have that nostalgia of what that event was like. And so we put our brains together. A couple of us, got together with the Denver Zoo. We reached out to DPS and said, who needs the most help? Who needs warm clothing, school supplies, medical supplies? And we want to be, a source of joy for them during the holidays, because this school in particular, Val Verde Elementary, is 100% at or below the poverty line. And so I just started making phone calls to alumni and friends and family and saying, hey, I'm starting this nonprofit. We need to raise some money so we can take the kids to the Denver Zoo. And we started with 40 kids. Then we did 120 kids last year. We raised $4,000 the first year. We have now raised over $25,000 since we started. So why this is important, at least for my heart, is I love giving back. I also donate $500 of my commission to a charity of my client's choosing. And it really gives that wow factor, that going above and beyond to some of my clients, that like, hey, it's not just real estate, he's also giving back. And in planning all these events, I'm working with hundreds of volunteers. And what's at the bottom of your email address?
Yeah.
Your signature line. I never have to mention that I'm in real estate. And so the conversation naturally comes up, following an event or a meeting with the sponsor or, so on and so forth.
I love the story because I actually thought, I'll be right there, Julie, I actually thought that the charity and your alumni were two separate situations, which in a way they are,
Right.
but not really. I mean, you kind of tied them together.
Correct.
And so the business, any business that you've gotten from the Alumni Association, it sounds to me like they're calling Dan DeBacco because they don't know how many listings or sales you have.
Correct. Yeah.
They have no idea.
Right.
They're calling Dan DeBacco, nice Dan DeBacco, reaching out to the community, doing good things, and I'm a Dan DeBacco fan. There's a lot to be learned there. So when you are, in the heart, giving of yourself, good things can happen, especially if you don't even think it's going to happen.
And with that, so I have a board of 8, and each one of those board members I have bought or sold for them, and I've gotten at least 2 or 3 referrals from them.
Julie.
That is the most wonderful story I've ever seen.
Say that
Ever
again.
heard.
Would you say that again?
That is the most wonderful story I have ever heard, and thank you very much for sharing. And if you take anything away from this meeting, you need to listen to Dan.
Oh, thank you,
Excellent
Julie.
comment. So going around, and I don't know the answers to this, we're going to stick on this giving topic, and it's just natural, I think, to come back to what would faith do. And by the way, I didn't know she wrote the book. Now I want to get the book because I didn't know about the book. I can't believe you didn't bring books. This kind of a session, you could probably sold a bunch of them. But so we know about the genesis of that. What else is involved? Is there a giving element? It sounds like you're touching a lot of people with this thought process. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like Dan, I write handwritten notes for Christmas. I'll write out 3,000 handwritten Christmas cards.
How long does that take?
About 80 hours.
80 hours. Do you do it in one day?
I wish there was 80 hours in one day. That would be awesome. And so the coolest thing is January, like I killed it this past January because who are they thinking of? Because there's a Christmas card. People just don't send handwritten cards anymore. They
Right.
just don't do it. And
Right.
not only do I do Christmas cards, like I just I handmake the cards. So I handmade my Halloween cards that are coming up. So I'm writing those out, and people remember that. They keep the cards, and then when their brother moves into town, they're like, they knew who to call because you touched them throughout the year, and I think it's really important. A friend of mine wrote a book called Lists That Save My Business. And in this book, she talks about that you need to have 30 touches before someone becomes a client. And at my leads group, the women ask me, Faith, is that true for your business? And in my life, in my business, it's usually about 15 touches before someone becomes either a client or sends me a referral. And we have Panda, which is awesome, and Prospect Square that sends out our monthly email, but you need to touch people way more often than that. So for Thanksgiving every year, I'll call about 200 people just to wish them Happy Thanksgiving. No one does that. Like, how many Thanksgiving calls have you guys got, right? Like, people just don't do that anymore, even for birthdays, right? Everyone does it on Facebook. And so it's really important to let people know that they're important. And that's important to me.
And what's wonderful about that, now you're really just saying Happy Thanksgiving.
Totally, without a doubt.
You're not saying, do you want to buy or sell?
No.
This is a pure call. Happy Thanksgiving. How many times do real estate conversations ensue as a result?
Probably 50% of the time,
Yep.
people will naturally ask, so how's
Yep.
biz? How's things going, Faith? I saw your video on Facebook the other day with your new listing. They'll naturally ask you, which is awesome. And so then my favorite question to ask people when I meet with them is, how can I be a contribution to you?
Yeah. So going back to my earlier comments about act and make the statement and this and that and whatever, do you see up here among these 4 people, do these people wait around? No, these are not people that are waiting for activity. These are people that are creating activity, okay? So hand the microphone over to Mark, if you would. Mark and I have had no conversation on this, so I don't know where this is going to go. But on the subject of giving, you've talked about kind of like being the building concierge, if you will. People call you all the time with questions and this and that. I know a little bit about how wonderful you were to your mother before she passed, and got a chance to meet her, and I was so impressed with just your whole persona around that. But is there anything that you would share with all of us in terms of giving and giving back and your thought process there?
I try to give a lot, just like, and I was not copying you. So for the 2 past years minus this year, I did the Rockies, and I invited everyone. And I had usually between 180 and 250 people come, and it was really, really cool. Todd got us set up, and I upgraded our tickets, so I got them in a little bit of a better section. And it was super expensive, but and I didn't do the party, so I paid more for the tickets and didn't do the party. But it was good because we had the Spire people all in one section, and then we got the Spire logo up on the jumbotron, which was super cool, and it made them feel special. And I did the invites on the Spire social media, our website, and then I also used RSVP, so people would go log in, and I was getting notifications on my phone every time they RSVP'd. But I'll do anything for any of the residents. I had a resident call me last week, and she said that her cell phone doesn't work well in her 37th floor condo, and she bought this thing at Best Buy that's supposed to make her internet act like a telephone, and she said she's just of the day where they have landlines, and she wants a landline in case the cell phone doesn't work. So I went up there, and she's probably 85. And keep in mind, this lady, when I first went on the HOA board there, she was in my face all the time wanting to see financials, thinking that we were just spending all kinds of money. So anyway, so we've gotten closer, and I went up and hooked up her VoIP, which is voice over IP, and her phone works perfectly, and she's happy. But I'll do whatever I can do to help people. And kind of on that note, as I wanted to expand, when I knew that, the Spire, we're down about 20 units in sales this year over last year. And a lot of it has to do because people need a real good listing agent that can educate buyers agents about that hotel, because they're just naturally freaked out about it. They're thinking that, people are going to be in their hotel rooms looking right into the condos, which isn't true, but it needs education. But anyway, the sales went down, so I was freaked out. And every time I get nervous about real estate, I just take a trip. And if you follow me on Facebook, no, I leave town about every 2 or 3 weeks, because it generates business. Every time I leave, something happens without fail. So I went to Hawaii, and also I'm a United Mileage Plus. I got to have miles. I know it's crazy. So I went to Hawaii because that's a long haul, flew in for a couple of nights, and I was on the beach, and the new Colorado in downtown called me and said they had someone that had a 1-bedroom under contract for 2 years. They backed out, and would I be interested in it? It was their lowest price point, and I thought, well, we're not getting more sales in the Spire, so it's time to branch out a little bit downtown. So now I closed on that in May, and it was going to be a rental, and now I'm not so excited about renting. It's kind of nice to go down there and then they have like more social events than any community that I've ever seen. So I go to all those places and I meet people and we talk, and everyone always asks what you do, and then I talk about that for a second. Then they say, how's it going, and how many are for sale in this building? So it's 10 years after the Spire, the Colorado, and so I had to move down there and start getting some sales right around there. And I'm adding with Wazee and around Ballpark and stuff. So I don't know how I got off on that, but
No, but it's great. And this is all good stuff. And it reminds me, I want to come back here now because you had a pretty good Rockies event. I mean, how many tickets did you?
I did 100, and I just thought, I'm just going to do this because everybody else seems to be doing it. And so I'm guessing some people in our audience out here is like, okay, I'm going to try what she's doing. Oh, I'm going to try what he's doing. I don't know what works. I just think that if it's been going for so long, then I guess I should try it. And I'll say I did it. I invited 125 people, and I think 80 people showed up. And then I wasn't exactly sure what to do. It's like, they're all sitting down. How do I talk to them? And you can tell that people were genuinely happy to receive the tickets for free, and I upgraded them also. And it was really a lot of fun. And so one of the best things that I learned from the event, and I'll do it again, is that if you give something to people that they're truly going to enjoy, and even if I got nothing out of it, I got to give, right? It was awesome. And so one of the things that I learned is once you give something to someone, you follow up with a phone call. So if you give something to someone, follow up with a phone call. Hey, Kevin, how was the Rockies game?
It was great, Kimberly. Thanks so much for inviting
Oh my God, it's been 6 months since I sold your house. I am so thankful you came, and I'm so thankful you're in my life. I really appreciate you coming.
That's the only reason you called me?
Yeah.
That's so sweet. What a sweet person you are.
And then the conversation goes to how's business? Business is really, really good, but guess what, Kevin? I'm counting on you to help me stay successful. Do you think that if you ever come across anyone that knows anyone who wants to sell or buy a home, you would throw out my name?
Absolutely.
That would
I would
really,
call- I
really
would- I
help
would
me
refer
out.
anybody else.
Are you guys willing to, are you guys, are you guys willing to help me out here? Everybody, if you can do me a favor, would you all stand up? I need some help. So if you guys can all help me out and all stand up. I just want to point out that everyone here is willing to help, right? I asked everyone for help. And when I ask you to please help me, everyone is always willing to help. And so your next question is, I just need one or maybe two people that you know that are just like you. I want only nice people that I'm working for as referrals. And you all saw that every one of you are willing to help. It's human nature. So thank you. It was just like a little experiment to show you that it's possible to get everyone to help you out.
I love it. So, Dan, I'd love to get your comments on the Rockies game as well.
Sure. So I do 100 to 125 per year. I could do more, but I like to diversify my events. So on top of the nonprofit stuff that we do, Katrina and I love to do Halloween. We haven't been able to do it the past 2 years just because we have a little 10-month-old, so that comes with new territory, but we're going to start again next year. This past year, we rented out a movie theater for the Avengers finale, and we've done Halloween parties, we've done big group cookouts, and Night at the Rockies. The reason why I like to diversify events is that not everybody likes baseball, not everybody likes Halloween, and not everybody likes the movies. I was very actually surprised at how many of my introvert clients came to the movie night that normally don't respond to any of my other events. So you have to really be mindful of that, right? That not everybody is as bubbly as you are or is interested in the same thing as you are. So you have to really kind of cater to your clientele. And as far as, a good point about touch points, right? 15, Faith was saying, and what were you saying, 30? Yeah, dang, that's a lot. What I do on a monthly basis is I do a client appreciation drawing. I send out an email to my entire sphere of influence and say, hey, I am just sending out a little email to you guys, raffling off, or I can't say raffling, it's doing a drawing for 2 tickets to the Broncos game. All you have to do is say you're in, and this is just an appreciation for your friendship. And there's no catch, and then right at the bottom I say, keep me in mind if you're looking to buy or sell real estate. I started doing that in January, and I've gotten a half a dozen referrals. So just another way to not be salesy, give them some sort of present for them just saying, I'm in. And then that way you do know that they're looking at your email.
I thought you were going to say I was going to put Go Browns down at the bottom. I know you're smart enough not to do that. So let's just open it up for any question from anybody to any panelist that you would like. We'll wait for, we won't wait for Mark. We'll catch him when he comes back. But anything that anybody would like to ask. Questions? Where? Miguel.
So I have a couple of questions for this one work?
It's on.
This one. For Kimberly. So you mentioned that there's a lot of not docking that you do, and many times it's soliciting. How do you handle that? That's one question I have.
Start right, say it one more time, ask the question one more time.
So you're saying many times you do a lot of door knocking, right? And many times it is not soliciting.
That's correct.
So how you handle that? Like how is the way that you go there and it's a not soliciting?
There's a sign that says that.
Not
but she knocks
soliciting.
anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you knock the door.
Great
Doesn't
question.
matter. So how you handle that.
That's a great question. So anybody who does not door knock, who wants to try door knocking, it's a perfect time because Halloween is coming around and you could take pumpkins. And so you're not soliciting, Miguel. Your whole goal is to be giving. You're going to give a pumpkin to introduce yourself. So at the time that I was in Stapleton, I started giving pumpkins, and I'm going to do that again this year. I think last year I gave out 250 hand-delivered pumpkins, and that is difficult to do, so it doesn't get done in one day. And try to stick 20 pumpkins in your car. It's crazy how much little space you have in your car. But the point is to take the pumpkin to the door, knock on the door, and when you give something to someone, no one is going to say, "Get out of here with your pumpkin." They're going to say, "Thank you." And if they are not home, I take a picture of the pumpkin with my card. I take a picture with the door with their address on the door, and I text it to them. And I said, "Sorry, I missed you. I wanted to wish you a happy Halloween. Call me when you get a free minute so we can get coffee." The purpose is to get in front of them and to have coffee. It's called a face-to-face. You want to have a face-to-face. People are going to want to have a conversation with you, and when you have that conversation, like Dan said, it's always about them. 2 ears, 1 mouth, always listening, always be interested, not interesting.
Awesome comments, and thanks for asking about the no solicitation, because it's very, very valid, and sometimes you'll see it posted at the beginning of an entrance to a neighborhood, and you think, well, that whole neighborhood is out. Well, let me just ask you a question. If you take off your real estate hat for just a minute, and you pretend I'm going to play this with you, Lisa. You're going to be a consumer, and you're not a realtor. And you left your home this morning, and you're driving down the street, and the exact model of the exact home has a sign for sale that was not there yesterday. You are a consumer. You are not a realtor. What are your thoughts?
Boy, I wonder how much it's on the market for.
I wonder how much it's on the market for. So if I was knocking on doors later that afternoon, and I'm actually providing information about what that house is on the market for, am I soliciting?
No.
I'm actually giving information to people that want that information, right? So keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking, I don't know if I want to do this or not.
So if I can bring it back just to where you're at and you're starting up new and you want to start growing a farm or you want to start building business and you're doing an open house, whether it's for me or for Dan or for Mark or whomever, you want to go 8 houses to the left, 8 houses to the right. You want to go 8 houses forward and 8 houses back, because the probability of the neighbor 2 houses over to sell the house is extremely high. And if you introduce yourself to let them know what is going on with their neighbor's house, then you look like you're being helpful. So for example, "Hi Kevin, I'm Kimberly Austin. How are you today?"
I'm good.
I'm so glad to hear. I just wanted to let you know there's probably going to be a lot of cars in front of the house today. I'm hosting an open house, and I just wanted to, first of all, introduce myself to you, and second of all, see if you know anybody that might be interested in buying it, because I want you to have the first chance of picking the neighbor. Who do you know that you would want to live next door to you?
You know, I don't know anybody right now.
That's okay, Kevin. I put you on the spot. I know you weren't expecting me, but if you don't mind, I would love it if you can think about it. And can I get your phone number really
Sure,
fast?
sure.
And maybe your email. I won't bother you or pester you, but if you know of anybody at all, it would definitely help you out because it's going to be your neighbor. And it would help me out because then I get to sell the house.
Easy. Miguel, looks like you had a follow-up question.
Yes, talking with Kimberly, it's a lot of, I really appreciate all the tips that you are giving to us today, especially me that I'm still new. But once that you got a person, either listing or buying, how you follow up? You send an email? Do you put in a drift campaign? What is the first piece that you send to that client in order to keep going the conversation without be yourself so business.
Before they became clients.
No, once that you have the card, like for example, I have right now. Yesterday, working in I work in a bank, and the lady, oh, I'm your neighbor. I was cashing a check. I'm your neighbor. So she gave me her phone, her email, everything. So I'm thinking maybe selling my house next year because my daughter is graduating. How I follow up? Why send after that?
That's a great question. So what I do with that is I send a follow-up handwritten letter. Miguel, it was so nice to meet with you at the bank yesterday. It's very rare that I get to meet my neighbor at the bank. I hope that we can do coffee soon. Here's my business card, which is going to be your business card. I'm going to follow up so that we can get together for coffee. And then when you get to coffee, you're going to ask her when she's wanting to move, where she's wanting to move. If she wants to move to, let's say, Castle Rock, you can say, you know what, I know you're not interested now, but I'd love to get you on an automatic drip campaign so that you could kind of start learning about what's out in Castle Rock to make sure that it's a good fit for you. In the interim, I'm going to set you up on a market snapshot through our company, and it'll come to you as often as you'd like it. How often do you think you would like to get information about your home? And she'll say, gosh, can you do that? Well, absolutely. And keep in mind, this is just an automated system. In order for me to give you a true assessment of your home, I'd actually have to see it. And then we can talk about the pros and cons of listing it at different prices. Definitely want to have a professional see it and give you that estimate before we actually list it. But let's get you started right away. And if you need anything in the interim, I'll be just in contact every now and again.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I've heard every panelist up here talk about a handwritten note. Is that correct? Yeah. Is that correct for all of your marketing? So let's just do a little survey right here. How many of you have received a handwritten note in the last 30 days from anyone? Let me see your hands. Right? Where is the note? Do you know where the note is? Do you all know where the note is? Yeah. The thing is, you don't throw these away. It's like insulting. There's no one even there watching you. But you'll take the note and you'll put it on the dresser or you'll put it on the counter. It is the best marketing you can do, period.
Kevin,
Questions? Yes.
Can I interrupt before that with the personal note? A lot of times you'll see people wish other people happy birthday on Facebook, and you'll jump in to say happy birthday to, and then you'll go about your day. Stop right there and write a happy birthday note immediately and put it in the mail that day. It will be delivered the next day, and people don't realize that you didn't know. And also pick up the phone and wish them a happy birthday, because people care about them. And if you pick up the phone and wish them a happy birthday, or you send that handwritten happy birthday note, they're going to know that you care enough to do the extra that other people didn't.
Absolutely. Ellen. Can we get this back to Ellen here?
Back to the pumpkin thing again. Sorry about that, but you may have said it. If we are going to start farming a particular area, and I love that pumpkin idea, and I think somebody had mentioned, if we don't know the person we're leaving the pumpkin with, obviously we can't follow up with them. Are you leaving, because you said you don't want it to look like business, just a gesture, a nice gesture of this pumpkin? Are you leaving something? Are you even leaving the pumpkin behind if nobody's there at all, or what are you doing?
You're absolutely right. So I made a little card that says trick or treat. It's question mark. It's definitely a treat to be the neighborhood expert in our community, and I would love to serve you too. Call me when you get a chance. I'd love to personally meet you.
Great. Questions? Anybody? Yeah. Gail?
Mark, in the listing agreement, section 4, it talks about Mark. Oh, you're looking around like. It talks about whether or not you're going to work as a transaction broker, and you went into length. I always check that box. You go into what I think is a little bit more length. I'd just like to know why you want to expose the transaction broker part of it, and then why you, in the additional provisions, talk about commission reduction right up front.
So my partner of 24 years is a real estate attorney. He's Italian from New York, and he likes to listen to my conversations with my clients. No, he'll be in the kitchen cooking, and I'll be talking and typing, and he'll say, do not go there. And then he'll say, make sure you go there. And so he just puts that in there. It makes them feel like they get something for doing it, because otherwise I've had them say, you know what, what's in it for me? You know, have them get their own broker. I don't want them to get their own broker because I can get it all done.
So I used to double end a lot, but I found, and my real estate's not your real estate. My real estate is, mostly resale and mostly older Denver, and so it's problematic in that there's always an inspection objection. So what I found to be true is when I was double ending, I'd write the inspection objection, and then the listing agent would say to, the seller would say to me, I'm both, would say, take it out of your commission. You pay for this stuff. You pay for the items that the buyer wants. And, you're caught off guard. So I decided not to do that anymore. I thought, bullshit. I'm not doing it. I don't like it. I hate getting beat up by the seller. I don't want to pay for these items. So, how do you get around that whole, when the inspection objection comes? Probably in the Spire, there are not very many big items.
They're not, but I do a lot of off-site stuff too that does become a problem. And with the market shifting the way it is now, the inspection items are kind of changing. They're asking for more stuff that they didn't used to. And as a listing agent before, when I was just representing the seller only, I was doing health and safety only, and all of my inspection stuff. As soon as we went under contract, I would always counter. I always counter everything. I get a full price offer. Their dates are always messed up or something, but I used to put the health and safety thing in there all the time. But you are right. It gets tough because you've got the inspection report with the buyer and you're working with them and they're saying, well, what should we do? And I tell them to read the report, and I say generally, I said my clients pick the most important things to them. I think nitpicking is crazy, but you can do what you want to do, because then again, it's the TB relationship. If I was representing just the buyer, I'd say this, this, and this, and they'd say, well, what about the chip paint right around the door? Then I could tell them, are you crazy? But I just had to be really careful with it. But I have had people, I had just one in the Spire that happened 3 months ago, and I had to use variable commission to get, because I have variable commission agreements with all of my clients. So I had to use variable commission. I was double ending it, and I was using variable commission, and I had to use that to get to the bottom dollar of the seller. So then the inspection crap came in, and I ended up spending $400 out of my commission on top of the variable commission to get the wall fixed. And it was just easier to do that since the buyer came to me. He's going to live in the building, and he just gave me a listing on WAZ, and then he expected 4.6% commission. He's a investment banker person. He said, well, you did 4.6 on the transaction at the Spire. And I said, no, you don't understand the whole picture of it. I said, here's what it was, because essentially, my going down to 4.6 gave you $10,000 off the purchase price, if you really want to know the truth. So I should really be doing yours for 7% on WAZ so I can get that back. So it's tough. But wait, I wanted to say one other thing about open houses, and I know we've touched on it. I just put a new listing on in Stapleton yesterday around noon, and 1 year ago, if I would have done that, it would have had 3 showings last night and 2 scheduled today. And I looked at my phone. I'm going to call CSS. I think they're down for the day. No, there's not been 1 showing request on it. But I'm going to be there Saturday and Sunday from noon to 3, and I'm going to bake cookies, and I can't wait to do it. And it's 96 paired home, John Lang paired home, and I've sold most of them there on resale. I used to be the president of that HOA, and I'm really excited to be there, and I think open houses are such a great opportunity. And I remember when Nita and I did our very first one, it was together, and it was for Patty Johnson. It was on 6th Avenue Parkway, and we were scared to death, but you know what? And Patty was saying, no, don't track anything in the house. And I'm like, okay, she's mean. But but you know what? Do open houses. I'm not beneath them. I love doing them. I've run out of time, but I'm so excited. So if you're in Stapleton, stop by and see me.
That sparked something in you.
I wanted to say I do the transaction brokerage a little differently, and I think that's part of the beauty of having 4 different people up here. So when I do my listing presentation, I tell people that I charge 6.5%, and they're like, well, the other agent will usually discount their commission by 1% or 2%. And I was just hoping that you could help me. And over the course of time, I would try to put in my head how that worked, and I'd come up with a story. But by the time I got around to it, it was lost in translation. And so what I've done with my little paper is I thought, I should see how much that's going to cost. Is 1% really worth that while? So I took my little flyer, I took the houses that are exactly the same. These houses are all Infinity homes. They all have the exact same square footage of 5,880, all 4 of them. I listed and sold my house for $1,350,000. The next agent sold it for $1,220,000, which is $130,000 less. So if they took a 1% commission, that is $12,000. If I brought $100,000 more, wouldn't it be worth that commission? So if you could see it in black and white as to what you're bringing to people, that is like, people are like, oh my gosh. And it's not just one person, it's 2 and 3. The next one is $1,165,000. That's $185,000 less.
No, she's the higher price.
I'm the higher priced agent. And so that is in this example. At a different price point, I sold a condo that had 1,355 square feet. I sold it for $427. The agent behind me sold it for $405. The agent behind them was $411 and $417. And that is a $22,000 difference. So that paid for my commission and theirs. So the point I'm making is it's not about a price reduction. It's about the value you bring. And the value can't be understated in the sense that we are Coldwell Banker. We have commercials. We have advertising in our magazines. We have the text writers. People can't commit to that. And I say, you tell me why I'm bringing $185,000 more to my client than the guy next door. It's not that I'm any better than they are. I just have the tools to make it look like I am. And so you guys all have the same tools we do. You just need to communicate that. And so when it comes to the commission reduction and the double ending, people will say, if you bring a buyer to me, will you discount your commission? And I ask them the question back, do you want me to not bring that to them? Because I will get 2.8 if I bring it to the guy next door. Do you really want me to be disincentivized to drop my commission? I'll tell you right now, I used to be that guy where I dropped the commission. I used to suck, and I needed you. But today, you need me to bring you value. And the only way that I can bring you value is by giving you what I have. I've got a commercial. I've got a magazine that sits in all the grocery stores. I've got postcards. You want to see my postcards? People are going to walk away with these. And more importantly, I've got a marketing campaign that is second to none. Why would you want second best? And so when I ask you to see if I want to sit with you so that I can take you on, my question is, not do you want me, but do I want you? Because once I grab onto your hand and I say I'm going to take you on as my client, we're partners. And if you're wanting to take me down, then we're not a true partnership, right? We're not a true partnership. So if the conversation comes at inspection that I'm going to take a price reduction or whatnot, my answer is going to be the same. It's 6% at a bare minimum. And I'm going to ask you in this partnership to bring me not 1, but 2 people that you know that are exactly like you to come to me to be my next client. Because as soon as I sell your house, guess what? I'm unemployed. I don't want to be unemployed. I like doing what I do, and the only way that I can stay strong is by asking for your help. So I need 2 people that you know that I could serve that will benefit from what I'm doing. So when we go to do the double end and I bring you a buyer, you're not going to be as many days on market. I'm going to be incentivized to sell your property because guess what? I'm the best person to sell your house. I like your house. I'm your agent, and I'm supposed to be your advocate. So don't try to discount my commission because you're going to get the value, and it's in the numbers. Secondly, when it comes to inspections, if the deal's going to fall down because the buyer doesn't want to fix something, then I've got some money to give to you to keep it together.
I love that dialogue. You can tell you've done it many, many times, and it's great. And I love your reference to we and Coldwell Banker. I want to thank all of you up here today for the inventory that you bring into the market, because when you say we, if I'm listing in Stapleton, I can use your dialogue, but now it's us. So I can say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is why I'm charging this. What's more important to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what I bring to the bottom line or what I charge you? Here are 4 examples that are Coldwell Banker examples. They're all yours. So back to my we reference again. This is what we do.
This is what our office is.
This is what our office does. I get to pony on your success, both of you, in these situations, which is why, again, you try to build a bigger army, because the more blue and white that's out there, the better it is for everyone. I want to hear from Dan and Faith had her hand up here. On this, are you going to talk about this same topic?
I just had a quick thing I wanted to say about commission. So myself having the highest average commission in the DTC office, when it comes to lowering the commission, I simply ask the seller, how fast was the other agent willing to lower their commission? It's like that, right? Yeah. I said, okay, so they gave away their bread and butter that fast. How fast do you think they'll give away yours? Yeah. I said, and now you just outsold your salesman, and now you want them to go negotiate for you, right? So they always sign. Because that's what's really happening. If you're lowering your commission, you are not fighting for yourself.
Right. And if you can't fight for yourself,
how are you going to fight for them? 100%.
I had somebody tell me one time, and any way you want to throw it in there or use it, but if I'm diagnosed with brain cancer and I have a tumor in my brain, am I shopping price when I'm talking to my surgeons? No. It's not even on the list. This is your largest single asset, and you're shopping price instead of protection. Who's going to protect the price? And that's what's most important. Not what we pay, not what you pay us. Who's going to do that and really give you the best job? Your comments on that?
As far as transaction brokerage or commission?
Well, commission conversations. I know you've had them. You've done enough deals.
Yep.
I don't want to pay you the fee. Where are you going to go with that? And how does that work?
Sure. I mean, I definitely use the brain surgery comment quite a bit. And I usually get the same reaction that we just had in this room. I did, fun story today. I actually lost a listing today because he wanted me to bring down my commission. And I did my entire Moxie presentation. I even had some previous sellers give him a call. I was recommended by my lender partner. And sometimes you're just not going to get it. And you know what? At the end of the day, you need to be able to walk away and say, I didn't want it. 100%. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. So, and one comment I want to make about the open houses. So, my first deal was with Mark, and ever since I did that with Mark, I insist on doing open houses. It is probably, bar none, the best way to garner new business. You have people that want to talk about real estate. I mean, there's no better opportunity to get in front of people that you don't know. And really the way I approach it is I'm very warm and friendly. I let them come in, give them basic information, and then we follow up thereafter. The story, I want to share this just because I share it all the time. It's such a success story. So I did the open house for Mark 2 days in a row. So it was a Saturday and a Sunday. This couple came in, and they were very adamant about the house. They said they're going to write an offer. We're going to bring back our agent to discuss what we're going to do. So the next day comes, they come back in, they seem disgruntled because they're like, we can't get a hold of our agent. They finally get a hold of her. They come back an hour later. The agent comes in. They go in the basement, and then, they have a conversation. Agent walks out, says, "Hey, we're going to write an offer. We'll be in touch." I go, "Hey, so what happened there? You guys don't seem happy. You're about to write an offer." They're like, well, she won't write an offer today. I go, oh, why? I mean, we potentially have an offer on the way. Like, well, we have to list our house, and she doesn't work on Sundays. She made an exception because she wanted to meet us because we had called her the day before. I go, well, who are you working with? They're like, Trelora. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Do you have an agency agreement with them? No, we don't. Do you really love this house? Yes, we do. Great. So how about I come over this evening? I'll do a listing presentation. We'll see how quickly we can get your house on the market. I'll talk to Mark. Mark is a good buddy of mine. He's letting me open his house. Why don't we see if we can get something on paper? 24 hours later, I had a new listing, and I was under contract with Mark.
And just to add to it, I felt, I thought, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I didn't do that open house. That's like, no, I was like, I thought, it's being in Las Vegas, and you walk away from that machine, you're thinking, should I just pull it one more time? And I thought, oh my gosh. But you know what? I was so happy it was with Dan. That was awesome.
It was, man.
And we
Thank
got
you.
it all done. And we took a home sale contingency, which you didn't do at all in Stapleton. But I believed in the entire thing that we had going, and it worked out. And sellers were happy, the buyers were happy, and Dan and I were too.
I was just going to talk about that. You said it was a contingency, but even though they weren't even on listed yet, they hadn't gone under contract, you still took their offer. They weren't through inspection or anything. What made you decide to take that gamble?
I took a gamble, honestly, because it was Dan, and the sellers were actually good clients of mine and friends, and they said, why would we do this? I said, I just feel good, and this is the right thing to do. And sometimes you put stuff on in Stapleton, and Kimberly will tell you, you get slammed with showings, and sometimes it's crickets. It's not predictable, and I just had this feeling that we need to make this work. And he was over there getting that presentation done, and he was texting me saying, okay, it's all signed. The photos are this, and it was all right on track. It was perfect. But that was a good question, though.
It was definitely helpful that it was in Stapleton, the contingency as well. So you were able to vet it out as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Faith.
So, speaking of that, when you don't get a listing, one of my favorite things to say to my client is, wish you the best. If anything changes, call me. And so I did that exact thing recently, right before the Rockies game, and a seller decided to go with the neighborhood specialist. And sometimes I feel like the neighborhood specialist can negatively stimulate a neighborhood because they want to get the listing. So she took it for $30,000 more than what I would have listed it for. And I told my client she could have Rockies tickets. She goes, well, Faith, even though I'm not going to use you to sell my house, can I still have a pair of tickets? And I said, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. I mean, it's $550 I'm giving away. So, and again, I'm giving them without expectations. And so I went to hand deliver them, and sure enough, my assistant and I were there at the house, and we're ringing the doorbell, and I was like, wait a minute, where's her listing sign? This is weird. I know it was active 2 days ago. And she wasn't home. I dropped the tickets in her mailbox. I get to my Escalade, and I read my text from her and said, hey, Faith, I just fired my agent. We need to talk. And so I sat her next to my biggest #1 fans at the Rockies game.
Nice.
And, they talked me up, she talked me up, and so sure enough, I have the listing. And the other thing I wanted to talk about the Rockies game, one other thing I do at the happy hour is I do a photo booth at the happy hour, because we don't print photos anymore, right? I have 50,000 photos on my iPhone, but how many are printed, right? And so on the strip, I put my business card. So my business card's on their desk, on their refrigerator, and I also have my photo booth print too. So in May, I print all the ones I had printed from last year. I sent them a card saying, hey, save the date for this year. And it's just another touch to be in front of them and to have your name in front of them at all times.
All right, guys, in the interest of everybody's time, I want to thank everybody today for coming in, especially our panel. Let's give them a big round of applause. And Sarah, if you could come up for 1 second, because I know we've got some stuff we want to share with these people. So I'm going to ask them for one last comment on the way out. So no questions to the comment, but the comment is, if you had one thing and one thing only that you would share with the group that was the most impactful, the most either a person that you that influenced you, an activity that you got to focus on, that no matter what, just one thing, what would that be?
Got it. So in the early part of my career, when I was under contract with Mark, I was so excited. I was giddy. I was like, oh my God, I got something under contract. We're going to go on vacation. But then when that closed, I had nothing. I was unemployed. The best advice that I've gotten and what I do today is as soon as you go under contract with somebody, you market the hardest. You meet more people, you have more meetings, you're always, always, always prospecting. Then that way your funnel is always full and you're never going to be unemployed. I have not been unemployed for 18 months now.
And you have,
Yeah.
that adrenaline. It's great to share that adrenaline. Kimberly.
So I was told by just some folks in my past that when you're in real estate, it's kind of like a storm, right? You're either walking towards the storm, you're in the eye of the storm, or you're leaving the storm. And so I would say that it's easy to get discouraged no matter where you're at in your career, whether you're just starting out or whether you've been doing it like 18 years like myself. There are so many days that I get my teeth kicked in and I was thinking, why am I doing this? And then there are other days where I sit at a closing and some people are just so incredibly happy and you feel just so much reward for that. I would say to all of you is don't give up on yourself. Get up, show up, and be the realtor you would want to have represent you.
Thanks for sharing that because it's very, very true. Where's Sonia? Oh, Sonia left. Okay, so just this morning, this very topic, Sonia's been in the business a long time, successful. I said, how's it going? She goes, oh my God, I got 5 listings that aren't selling. How many of you would like to have 5 listings going into the fourth quarter that aren't selling one way or the other? And I had to remind her, this is inventory, Sonia. You can work this, you can get them reduced. Don't get down on yourself. This guy, before he went to Spain, he's calling me on the phone, he's texting me, I got all these listings, nothing's selling. And I'm coaching him, it's going to be just fine. I talked to him on the phone. Yeah, Joe's listening in, it was great. I told him, I said, just relax, Mark, it's all going to be fine. You're a great negotiator, you know what you're doing. Go take a trip. And Joe yells out, I just told him that. So what I'm pointing out is, yes, even at the top level, you're still going to get discouraged, just kind of continue to move forward. Okay, what would you share?
I've got an appraisal in 40 minutes, but relationships, we talked about it and everyone's touched on it, but just have genuine relationships. And I know it's hard to think about commission being number 2, but I've become so close with a lot of my clients that are best friends today. I was over with one last night. I did 2 deals with last year, and I've got another one coming up in a couple weeks, and we had dinner and we had drinks and talked and stuff, and just build relationships. The rest of it will come. That's all I got to say.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Faith?
So one little thing, especially if you're new or even if you've been in the business for a while, this was like 10 years ago. I had a deal with another Coldwell Banker agent, and my buyer was not happy with me. Told me I was too positive and that I needed to be a real you-know-what. And and so she fired me. Well, we were under contract on $1 million deal. And I remember at the time my managing broker was like, well, maybe because you're too positive, people just think you don't care. And I remember walking out of there saying, if I have to change who I am to be in this business, I'll go do something else. Long story short, because it was an in-house deal with another Coldwell Banker agent with this office, actually, I got paid $22,000 on that deal, and I didn't even have to do the rest of it. And so stay true to yourself. That's the most important thing. Don't ever lower your standards or your morals for money.